Take a moment just to introduce you Kim Seeling Smith, who I had the great privilege of having on my panel yesterday, which was a great amount of fun, right up until the point she smacked me for saying something she didn't like, but it was a nice smack. Kim originally trained as a CPA and Management Consultant with KPMG and made the switch to HR, fascinated by the psychology of recruitment. Staff retention became a personal focus point, and she undertook in-depth studies in this high-cost area. From a 15-year career in recruitment, which has seen her work within and lead organisations such as Hudson and Robert, Half International in the US and New Zealand, and a niche boutique firm in Sydney, Kim realised that the emerging knowledge economy demanded a fresh approach. That approach is delivered strategically through Ignite Global. Founded in Sydney in 2009, Ignite has seen Kim meld her personal experience with the latest international research. Ignite offers clients a combination of case studies, statistics and best practice to enable them to increase their staff retention rates and consequently advance the business. Great pleasure introducing Kim. Thank you.
Thank you. And good morning again. Yes, that's my bio. That's who I am. But what I believe is that life is too short for a career that you don't absolutely love. Now, that's a big, bold statement, especially since 95% of you here in this room don't love your careers. And I know this because of my time in recruitment. When I was in recruitment, I talked to candidate after candidate after candidate. You'll hear a little bit about my journey. But 95% of you don't love your careers because you have not done a great job of proactively managing them. Now, it's not your fault, because who teaches career management? Well, besides me. You don't learn this stuff in school, and very few people teach you how to do it. Very few companies, although more and more, are starting to give this emphasis. If you don't proactively manage your career, it can cost you. It can cost you your hopes, your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. But not only that, if you don't help your staff manage their careers, it can cost you lost productivity. This is a scary statistic. If you've seen me speak before, you know that I'm all about scary statistics. I'm a recovering accountant, so numbers have never gone far from my life. Up to 73% of Australians are looking either actively or passively for their next job. Why? Because there's something that they are uneasy about in their current jobs. And sometimes it's something that's very, very small. This is one of the top things that you can do to engage and retain your staff. So the framework that I'm going to teach you today will help not only you manage your careers, but also help you help your employees so that you don't have to pay between 50 and 200% of their annual salary to replace them. Most people, when they think about career management, it's just a series of open doors. They need a job, they go find a job. They need another job, they go find another job, without thinking about where those doors are actually taking them. They're waiting for this divine inspiration to hit them. What is it that I'm really meant to do? They're waiting for that lightning bolt. Well, guess what, guys? I've got some bad news. Your career is a DIY project. I've been in this game long enough to know that there's not one thing that you are meant to do. There are many things that you can do, that you'll be really good at, that you'll be passionate about. But how do you find that? I'm going to teach you a 4-step process today that will help you take control of your career so that you don't end up going through those open doors until you find yourself either on that proverbial plateau or even worse, in that dead end. So how do we do that? Let me give you a little bit of background. There's not a mistake, a career mistake, that you can make that I haven't made before. I was sitting in your chairs, literally. I was a double major at Ohio State with accounting and computer science, and I said yesterday during the panel discussion, if you held a gun to my head, I might be able to spit out a COBOL program. But I've always been interested in both accounting and computers, and do neither now. I'm in the people business. But my career has been very varied, and it's been awesome. As you can tell by my accent, I'm not from around these parts. Grew up in the United States. In fact, I grew up in a small town called Oconomowoc. Prizes to anybody who can spell that. I can see you Googling right now. Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. Now, what's Wisconsin known for? Anybody know? Cheese, absolutely. And their football team are the Green Bay Packers. And Green Bay Packers fans are known as cheeseheads, so I am a proud cheesehead. I moved to Ohio to go to university, and as I said, I double majored in accounting and computer science, and I actually chose first to go to KPMG. That's me being a nerdy accountant. And I chose KPMG because they promised me an overseas secondment program after 2 years. 2 years, work hard, you'll be transferred overseas. I said, fantastic, and 2 years later, they transferred me to Dallas, Texas. I don't think they'd read a map. You know, Americans in geography, we don't do geography really well. Well, that was one of the luckiest coincidences that I had because I ran into a woman by the name of Deb Bennett. Now, Deb and I are still very, very good friends. And Deb saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And she said, you know, you're not meant to be an accountant. I said, really, you think? I have failed miserably at accounting. I left KPMG and I went through a series of role after role after role thinking, well, maybe it's this job, or maybe it's this company, or maybe it's this boss. Anybody have those thoughts about maybe the next role will be the right role? Well, I finally realized that there's one common denominator, and it was me. I was not a good accountant. And Deb saw something in me, and she said, you need to become a recruitment consultant. And I went, a used car salesman? Not in your life. But she actually convinced me to do that, and I had a fantastic career. That's me going, I don't have to do accounting anymore. I had a fantastic career as a recruitment consultant. I worked with thousands of candidates, and I helped people manage their careers more effectively. Now, I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time, as I said, and I was pretty happy in Texas until we elected this guy, and then I got the hell out of Dodge. Moved to New Zealand for 6 years and then have been in Sydney for the last 5. My business now is Sydney-based, but I work throughout Australia, Asia, and I've just done a soft launch back to the United States. While I was in recruitment, I interviewed over 5,000 candidates. I saw people come into my office dead inside with no light in their eyes because they hadn't done a great job of managing their career. And I also saw a handful of people who actually had. And I thought, well, what's the difference between the people who had managed their career really well and those who hadn't? Is it education? Is it their ability to navigate the political landscape? Is it their personality? What is it? Is it the skill set? Is it how they were trained? Is it luck? And I discovered that it was none of those. And I did, back in 2002, I actually first put, this is my very first keynote ever, and I put this together in 2002, helping people understand what 4 steps, what 4 distinctions distinguish people who are not great at managing their career from those who are. Now, those 4 steps is what I'm going to be talking about today. And I warn you, this is 20 hours worth of material that I'm going to deliver in about the next 30 minutes. So I'm going to give you the tip of the iceberg, but I'm also going to give you an opportunity to email me for some free resources, some exercises that I actually use in my workshops when I teach career management. I typically teach career management to high potential employees, and I'll tell you a success story about that in a second. So I'm going to go over these 4 steps first, and then we'll drill down a little bit into each one of them. First of all is setting your course, figuring out where it is that you want to go. Stop going through those open doors. Look for a destination. The second one is soar with your strengths. Figure out what your natural abilities are. Strengths are not just what you're good at. I'll talk about that in a second. Mind the gap. You're here. You want to go there. How do you get there? Give you some tools to do that. And then the 4th one is condition resilience. Be able to pull yourself up after those inevitable setbacks that we all have in both life and career. So let's start setting your course. And it's just truly like figuring out where you want to go when you go on a trip. So let me ask you a question. When you think about planning a holiday, what's the first question that you ask yourself? How much money have you got? Okay. What's the second question that you ask yourself? Where do I want to go? You don't ask yourself, do I want to fly, or maybe I'll drive, or gosh, maybe I'll take a train. Unless you're a model train or a train enthusiast like my partner. He likes trains. But most of the time we ask ourselves first where we want to go, and then we worry about the vehicle that's going to get us there, right? Well, why is it that when we plan our career, which is kind of one of our ultimate destinations in our life, We do exactly the opposite. We ask ourselves, do I want to be a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker? Right? Do I want to be an accountant, or do I want to be a programmer? What do I want to do? Not who do I want to be, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? We flip it upside down. So how do you set your destination? There are a number of tools that I use in the workshop, but I want to give you the most important one. And it may be a little bit surprising for some of you. You need to really get a handle on what your personal goals are. Do we work to live or live to work? Come on. Do we work to live or live to work? We hopefully work to live, right? We need to fit our professional lives into our personal lives. So the very first thing that we need to do is figure out where the heck we want to go in our personal lives. So do your personal goal setting exercises. If you've never done this exercise before, this is homework for you. This is the #1 thing that you can do to proactively manage your career. Now, your personal goals need to be congruent with your professional goals. And as managers, that's the #1 question that you need to ask your staff. You don't need to invade their privacy if they don't want to share what their personal goals are, but you want to work with them and make sure that they're congruent. This is a picture of a chef. I had a woman come to me back when I did individual career coaching, which I don't do anymore. I had a woman come to me and she said, I'm an IT project professional, project manager. I want to get out of what I'm doing now. I want to retrain. I want to be a chef. I said, great. What are your personal goals? She was 32 years old and single. What do you think her personal goals were? Married and have babies, right? Have you ever talked to or known chefs? How many hours do they work? What kind of crazy hours do they work? They were incongruent with each other. I actually helped her stay in the same industry but retrain into a different function. So she went from having a career that she absolutely hated to a career that she loves, but she didn't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So make sure your personal goals are congruent with your professional goals. And again, I'll email you. If you send me an email, and I'll give you my contact details at the end. If you send me an email, I'll email you a personal goal setting exercise if you haven't done this before. The second step, soar with your strengths. Now, I said that strengths weren't necessarily what you're good at. This is how we think about strengths usually, right? What are you good at? That's only part of the equation. I believe that strengths are, and I have the Gallup organization and 7 million people that they've done, a 7 million person research study that they've done over the last 30 years to back this up. A strength is nothing more than a natural ability, and it can be one that's been developed, which is something that you're good at, but also something that hasn't been developed. You have the capacity to learn it. So how do you go about figuring out what your strengths are? Well, I guarantee it's not typically your technical skills. And it's also not your technical skills that will get you those promotions. It's your special sauce. It's that added dimension that you bring to those technical skills, how you do what you do. The Gallup organization, after their 7 million person research study, has said that this is the #1 indicator of success. And as a manager, if you can help your staff uncover and play to their strengths, the productivity goes up, your customer service scores go up, your employee turnover goes down. It's amazing what just this one distinction can give you. So how do you figure out what your strengths are? Well, interestingly enough, it's all about how you feel. How you feel as you're doing what you're doing. Because you can be good at something and have it be completely depleting from an energy perspective, right? You know, I trained as an accountant and as a computer programmer. I'm actually really good with detail, really good. But it makes me want to hang myself. Seriously. Anytime I have to focus and get down into the detail, I just want to run into the hills screaming. It makes me feel depleted. It does not give me energy. It takes energy away from me. So you need to pay attention to some signs. Signs about how you feel either before, during, or after. So your second piece of homework is to keep a log. of what you do on a day-to-day basis. And it's recommended to do it for a week or two. And pay attention to those tasks on a daily basis that you look forward to. Wow, I get to do expense reports today. That would not be me. Or tasks that while you're doing them, time just disappears. You know, you're in the zone, right? Or a task that you may not be looking forward to, and it may be pretty difficult as you're doing it, but you walk off, you end that task and you think, wow, that was really exciting, I want to do that again. That's what public speaking was for me. The very first time I got up on stage, it was the late 80s, and I had big earrings on, and all I could hear were my earrings rattle. But I walked off stage going, that was a lot of fun, I want to do that again. So it's how you feel before, during, or after. So again, homework for you. Pay attention to what you do on a day-to-day basis. Help your staff pay attention to these things as well. Now, I'm not saying that you need to completely rewrite their job descriptions. Marcus Buckingham, who's taken the strengths movement forward from Gallup, says that all you have to do is slowly over time, and he suggests 6 to 12 months, just incorporate 2 more hours a week of your strengths and 2 less of those activities that deplete you. So what do you do with those activities that deplete you, those weaknesses? Well, there are a number of things that you can do. And I've got a lot of information on this slide. You will get copies of the slides. So the first thing that you can do is just stop doing it. If there's a meeting that you go to that nobody really pays attention to, just stop going. If you don't have to be there, see if anybody notices. The second point is to team up. Work with somebody that's good at what depletes you and see if you can combine forces to do it. Or thirdly, trade with them. I used to do this with expense reports. I had another, when I was a recruiter, I had another recruiter in my office. Well, when I was managing the office, my admin did it. But when I lost the admin, after I stepped back and just started recruiting again and stopped managing for a while, I traded with somebody and had them do my expense reports, and I'd take them out to lunch every week. Worked brilliantly, because she didn't mind doing expense reports. The other thing that you can do is you can perceive these things differently. Look at the time of day that you do these activities. Maybe you're more energetic in the morning or at night. Look at the time of day, reframe it. Whenever I have to do something detail-oriented, I play little games with myself. So there are a number of things that you can do to manage or mitigate your weaknesses. The third step is to mind the gap. Mind the gap between where you are now and where you want to go. So the first thing that you need to figure out is, where is that? Setting your course, really looking at those personal goals, that's the first step in minding the gap. Playing to your strengths, figuring out how you're going to get to where you want to go. What you want to be doing while you're on your journey, what tasks that you want to be doing. That's the second step. The third step is to, once you figure those out, what you'll find is that you'll actually have a lot of options that open up for you. You can be a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker. And each one of those will lead you to the destination, will help you accomplish those personal goals, and will be playing in the areas of your strengths. But then it's a matter of choosing which one. What path do I go down? Now, how many of you have ever done a pros and cons list? Yeah, probably everybody, right? How many of you have ever done a pros and cons list where the pros just totally outnumber the cons, and yet you still have no heart to do it? Or vice versa. Yeah. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that system? Sorry? It's subjective. Too late last night. Subjective. What else? What else is wrong with that system? Interests. Partially. What's wrong with this is that it's strictly based on the number. It's based on the number. The number, in this case, the number of pros outweigh the number of cons, yet I really don't want to do it. It's because I really have no heart behind the pros, and these cons, I really don't want to do these cons. The value is different, right? On the con side, it may be a lump of coal, it may be heavy, but on the pros side, it's a diamond. Yet which is more valuable, the diamond or the lump of coal? Obviously the diamond. So in order to really determine which course to go, it's not enough just to do a pros and cons list. You actually have to assign an emotional charge to that. I call it a decision matrix. It's a tool that I borrowed from somebody and he borrowed it from somebody else. I have no idea who initially came up with it. But again, this is one of my resources to help you decide which of these paths to go down. Use the pros and cons list, but assign an emotional charge. Human beings are actually emotional. Now, I know I'm talking to a lot of left-brainers in this room, but there have been numerous studies done with people who have lost the ability, they've had brain injury or head injury, and they've lost the ability to feel emotion. And the studies were all about decision-making. And they thought, well, these people won't have any problem at all making decisions. Guess what? They were paralyzed. Turns out that we make decisions based on how we feel. So the decision matrix process will help you decide between options, and it'll help you get an answer that will feel better for you. So again, free resource, the decision matrix. Okay, so now I've chosen a course. I know where I want to go, and I need to come up with an action plan. How am I going to get to where I want to go? A couple of things that you need to do. First of all, there are technical skills, right, that you need to accumulate. The woman that I helped transition from being an IT project manager, she went into a project management function with more of a marketing spin. So she needed to develop some technical marketing skills. But more than that, there are actually 4 critical non-technical skills that I have seen really make the difference between people who are just good technically and people who are more well-rounded. These are 4 non-technical critical skills. Now, when I say non-technical, I mean it doesn't relate to your job. These are 4 non-technical critical skills that will help you succeed in a business environment no matter what you're doing. The first one, believe it or not, is technology. And I'm saying that these are non-technical. So if you are a COBOL programmer, God knows why you would be in this day and age, although I know that there still are some legacy systems out there, technological skills are technical skills for you. But if you are in marketing, if you're a CIO, you don't deal with the technology, but you need to be au fait with the technology that affects what you do. So if you are in marketing, you need to be au fait with your CRM, with social media. Everybody needs to be au fait with social media these days. That's a topic for another conversation. So technological skills. Rate yourself on your technological skills as they relate to your function, as they relate to your business. The second is managerial skills. Now, what if you don't manage people? Do you still need to increase your managerial skills? What else can you manage? All of the above, yes. Resources. People is just one component. Yourself, your time. If you are in charge of a departmental budget, finances. So make sure that you understand how to manage what you're responsible for managing. The third skill I used to teach as the most important of these non-technical critical skills. Communication skills, right? We've heard about this for years. Verbal and written communication, absolutely essential. Yes, it is. And I don't need to say any more than that because I think you get it. I'm preaching to the converted here. But the point that I want to make is up until about 4 years ago, this was the #1 non-technical skill that I taught. What do you think the #1 non-technical skill that I teach now is? Service? Listening? That would probably go into communication skills. Anybody see Brad Bush's Ignite talk yesterday? Or panel? What did he talk about? Coke? Innovation. 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 Problem solving. If you heard me last year, you heard my 5 C's overview. And I talked about how we've moved from the industrial age into the social age. And how McKinsey says that 70% of new job growth have a high component of what they call this heuristic work, this right brain work. People need to be innovative, creative, strategic, solutions-oriented. This is the #1 skill that you can develop and enhance in order to further your career. It's the #1 skill that you can help your staff enhance to further their careers as well. How do you do that? How do you develop these non-technical skills? Ooh, silence. How do you do that? Practice? Yes, practice, but there's a component before practice. You have to learn them. Technical skills, if you're in a technical role, you are probably inundated with opportunities to train on these technical skills, and your companies probably pay for them. With the non-technical skills, some call them soft skills. There ain't nothing soft about these skills. Companies are less likely to pay. This truly is a DIY project. You need to be responsible for continuously evaluating where you are in these skills and how you can develop them. And then go find courses, short courses, online courses. My gosh, there's so much education out there. Specifically with this one, there's a pro bono, or at least there used to be a pro bono website right here in Australia, or developed by a man right here in Australia called Michael Gleason Hewitt. Anybody familiar with Michael Gleason Hewitt? Anybody familiar with Edward de Bono? Yeah. Michael worked with Edward for years. Left to come back to his home country of Australia, settled in Melbourne, and he developed a website called The School of Thinking. It's a pro bono website, or at least used to be. It hasn't, I haven't looked at it in a while. So develop these skills yourself, and then come up with an action plan. You want to go there, you're here. What do you need to do within the next, I work backwards with this. What do I need to do if I set a 3 to 5 year plan? By the way, do you want to plan out more than 5 years? Why? Change. Oh my gosh, you guys are at the forefront of it, right? Technology, globalization, things are changing so incredibly quickly. You can't possibly see what's around the corner. Anybody predict the global financial crisis? There were some people who did. I wasn't one of them. You just never know. Anybody start working before the fax machine? Yes. I mean, look at the technology that we have now that we didn't. You cannot. We are graduating university students that will retire from careers that haven't even been thought of yet. So 3 to 5 years max, and then have a rolling plan. But you need an action plan. Stop going through those open doors. Figure out where you want to go personally, how you can use your strengths to get you there, what path you want to go down, and then come up with an action plan. So if my 5-year plan is this, what's my 3-year plan? What's my year plan? What do I have to do next month? What do I have to do today to reach my goals? And then make sure that you keep on track. Even writing them down will help you. Even if you never look at them again, just the act of writing them down embeds it into your subconscious mind. Sorry, your unconscious mind. I slipped. Why do I say unconscious instead of subconscious? Anybody know? What does sub mean? Lesser, right? Again, there ain't nothing lesser about that unconscious mind. It is tremendously powerful, which actually brings me to my 4th step, conditioning resilience. Conditioning resilience. What's resilience?
Ability to bounce back.
Exactly right. Ability to bounce back from setbacks. Anybody have a life without any setbacks ever? No, it's just not possible, right? Professional lives, personal lives, we have setbacks all the time. Resilience is your ability to bounce back from those setbacks without getting stuck like the proverbial. Couldn't find a possum in headlights, so I used the deer in headlights. Right? Without getting stuck. Let me tell you about a friend of mine named John. John was the financial controller for a pharmaceutical company. When I was recruiting in Auckland, he was one of those guys. When I rocked up to Auckland, I thought, I'm gonna save the world from bad recruiters. I'm gonna introduce the city of Auckland to myself and to the company that I worked for at the time, and I was an evangelist for good recruitment practices. And I went and I knocked on John's door because John was the financial controller of a large pharmaceutical company, very well-known blue chip company. And John said, yeah, right, go away. John was pretty arrogant. And was until the day that I left Auckland pretty arrogant. And he had a right to be arrogant, actually, because John was one of those guys, you know those guys that never had to do a resume because they were so good at what they did that they just kept getting poached to go from position to position to position. He was opening he was walking through those open doors, but he wasn't opening them. Other people were opening them for him. Right? And when I met John, he had this little spring in his step. He didn't want anything to do with me. He didn't want anything to do with anybody other than the people that he was already in a relationship with. And he had such a good reputation in the marketplace that, quite frankly, he didn't actually need to use a recruiter because he was so good at what he did. Well, long story short, I ended up over 3 years wearing John down. And John became a client of mine, and a very good client of mine, and a very good friend of mine. Now, like I said, John had never had to look for another role until the GFC. He was working for a multinational pharmaceutical company, and during the GFC, they decided to eliminate the entire finance department in Auckland and move it to Sydney. A lot of that happened during the GFC. Now, John was given the opportunity to move with the company. And he chose not to because he had a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old at the time. And he wanted to raise them in New Zealand. He was a Kiwi. He wanted his kids to grow up Kiwi. So he said, thanks, but no thanks. And, I'm John. John, by the way, is not his real name. I'm John. I will bounce back. Not a problem. I'll walk into something in a month. Took a very nice redundancy, sat on the beach, literally and figuratively, for a number of months. Then started looking for another job. Took him 18 months. The first and only job he could find was as a contractor working far below his level. When I saw John, John was dead inside. The light had gone out of his eyes. The spring had certainly gone out of his step. I saw him about 3 years ago. I just caught up with him not too long ago, and he's rebounded a little bit, but I don't think he will ever come back from that setback. How many people do you know that have had things happen to them that they just haven't been able to recover from? Let me introduce you to my friend Betsy. Betsy is probably my very best friend in the world. I've known her since the age of 12. This is us last September. We had kind of a Mr. Holland's Opus band reunion event. This is in my hometown of Oconomowoc. You can't tell in this picture, but that's, whoops, hello. You can't tell in this picture, but that is Venus. Can anybody see that big black blob? Anybody know what that is? Guide dog. Yep. Betsy's blind. Betsy's had juvenile diabetes since the age of 4. She's blind. She has had 4 strokes, 3 heart attacks, more personal problems, including husbands leaving her for 28-year-olds that he got pregnant, job setbacks, companies going out of business. That woman has every reason to just crawl into bed and cover herself with her doona and never come out again. But she doesn't. She's chosen instead to use these setbacks to her advantage. When she went blind 6 weeks after completing a doctorate in economics, she was never able to work in economics, her lifelong dream. 6 weeks after she completed her doctorate in economics, she lost her sight. That's okay. She decided she would use that to her advantage. She is now a world-renowned expert in training the blind on how to use technology. She is one of the happiest people I know, consistently. Why is it? Why is it that we have people like John who cannot rebound from one setback and people like Betsy who just keep popping up every time something happens to her? It's all about the lizard brain. You know, that reptilian brain? It's actually called the amygdala. It's the oldest part of our brain, and it's the one that wants to fly, It's the one that has the fight, flight, or another F word, instinct. It has these very basic needs, and in times of stress, it controls us. John let his lizard brain control him. He let those voices get to him. I'm not enough. I was a fraud, because everybody suspects that they are. I'll never find a job again. Betsy has learned to leash her lizard. Now, she works on it every day. This is something you have to condition. So my final gift to you guys is a set of exercises that I use to help condition that resilience, to bring out the inner badass, to help you rebound from those setbacks. So those are my 4 steps. Set your course, figure out where it is that you're going. What are your strengths? How can you work in doing the things that you love to do, that you have the natural ability to do? Mind the gap. How do you get from where you are now to where you're going? And how do you condition resilience so that you can rebound and jump back from those things that will inevitably happen to you? So I'll take some questions in a second. Just to remind you guys, I'm going to give you guys 3 resources, sorry. Well, several of goal setting exercise, the decision matrix process, and resilience exercises. There are about 3 or 4 resilience exercises that you can use for yourself and that you can use for your staff. Because indeed, if you help your staff manage their career, they will become more engaged, happier in their work, and more productive. And for the first 5 that send me the email, you'll get a copy of my book, which is for sale at the itSMF stand, but free of charge. For the first 5, you'll get a copy of my book. And if you don't have something to write my details down, take a pen. There are some pens up there and some pens down here with my contact details on there. So do we have time for 1 or 2 questions? 5 minutes. 5 minutes worth of questions. Oh, come on.
Just pick someone out and make them ask a question.
Very good, okay. What questions can I answer for you? And I'll be around at the break as well.
Yeah, they're a tough crowd.
They are a tough crowd. Well, I'm impressed that they're here, like I said, after the big night that you guys had last night.
Everybody's emailing you.
Very good. Very good.
And the guys can't ask a question while they're
Well, that's true, actually, yes.
Yes.
And I'll flip back to my, my email address as well.
Yep.
Sure.
Have you got any tips for developing more resilience, besides just not listening to the voices that are there?
Yeah. Yeah. There are 3 that I will give you, actually. One is called an IROC file. And this is a technique that I developed quite by accident. I'm 52 years old. I've moved 32 times. You know, that's excessive by any standards. And when I was moving from New Zealand to Australia 5 years ago, I was going through file folders and cleaning them up. And I kept running into cards and letters that people had written me, thanking me or telling me that I'd done a great job. And I started like sensing this inner badass coming out, right? I started really feeling like, wow, what I do matters. And I accumulated them all together. And then I moved to Sydney, and I had the world's worst entry into Sydney. I won't even bore you with what happened, but I was really despondent when I first moved here. And I got that IROC file out. I didn't call it an IROC file at that point in time, but I started reviewing these exercises. And I realized that after reading these things over and over and over again, I got in touch with how much value I actually gave and how I did matter in what I'd done professionally. And if I could do it in the past, I can do it in the future. And that really gave me the strength to go on. So I've got several exercises that I'll give you guys that will help you. But it's something that you have to condition in. These are things that you have to do every single day. And if you do that, I can give you case studies of amazing stories of people that have completely changed their outlook around. Because if you feel like you're a fraud, if you feel like you're a failure, if you feel like you don't belong, you're not alone. It is a universal condition. But there's a way to put a leash on that lizard and not have those thoughts control you, to control them. God, yes. Yes. Throw out your performance management systems. That's a whole nother topic. Talk about people's strengths. Now, I'm not saying don't correct them. Kill the monster while it's small. For any CIOs in the room, we'll be talking about that at the CIO brunch in a half an hour or so. Don't not address performance issues, but spend more time talking about how you can help them become even better at what they're good at. Performance will skyrocket. Helping them overcome obstacles, it'll skyrocket. Helping them manage their career, engagement will skyrocket. Most managers don't have these conversations, though, because they're afraid that the employees are going to want to go someplace that they can't provide them. But that's a mistake. If you help them manage their careers so that they identify internal opportunities as well as external, you'll be able to hang on to people. I just did this program with Sydney Water. Out of a cohort of 30 people, 3 people who were actively looking for other jobs decided to stay and found roles internally. This is one of the best things you can do for employee engagement. And I think I'm getting the hook.
Pretty much.
Peter's getting back at me for slapping him around during my panel.
It wasn't that bad a slap, but it was pretty good. All right, thank you very much. I love hearing Kim. Thank you very much. So, as a small token of appreciation, something to take away.
Thank you very much.
Kim, were you here for the very first session?
Yes.
Okay, you remember what they all did?
Oh, sorry, the very first session today or very first? No, sorry, I was still in Sydney.
Everyone got up and made a pinky promise with one another to make sure that they would take something away from the conference today and do it.
I like that, yes.
So pinky promises, binding. Kim has given you some great stuff, and I think you should incorporate that in your plan of what you're having going forward. So once again, thank you very much, Kim.
Great, thank you.
So
Feel free to pick up a pen or come down and ask me a question.